Every nation on the planet carries debt on its shoulders. The numbers are staggering. The United States alone is burdened with more than $38 trillion, the largest figure in its history. Across the Atlantic, the European Union sits on roughly $14 trillion. Japan's obligations climb to nearly $9 trillion. Even countries flush with oil revenue like Saudi Arabia, and economic giants powered by exports like Germany and China, owe vast sums. But this leads us into a paradox that almost sounds like a riddle. If every country owes money, who stands on the other side of the ledger? Who is everyone indebted to? This is where money, power, and history intersect. A place where nothing is ever as straightforward as the numbers suggest. Debt is not only a financial burden, it is the hidden framework holding up the modern world. Every economic boom, every crisis, every war, every recovery sits atop an invisible lattice of obligations, promises recorded not in stone, but on balance sheets. And when you follow those promises far enough, the discovery is both unsettling and strangely elegant. The world does not owe its debt to a mysterious outsider. In many ways, it owes it to itself. But that truth does not mean the benefits and burdens are shared evenly. Far from it. To understand how humanity arrived at a world drowning in more than $315 trillion in total debt, nearly 3 times the size of the entire global economy, we must travel backward in time. To the origins of national borrowing. Long before digital payments, high-frequency trading, or credit cards, the idea of sovereign debt emerged not from finance, but from war. The year was 1694. England was locked in conflict with France. The kingdom's treasury was running dry. Gold reserves shrank. The cost of military campaigns surged. Desperate for funds, the crown turned not to conquest, but to commerce. Wealthy merchants and financiers agreed to lend money in exchange for something unprecedented: a permanent stream of interest payments, guaranteed by future taxes. To administer this arrangement, the Bank of England was created. It was a revolutionary shift. For the first time, the state could spend resources it did not yet possess, backed only by trust in its own promise. In return, lenders received something of immense and enduring value: a government bond. A pledge written into history, capable of being traded, bought, or sold. That single innovation planted the seed of the global financial system. Other nations took notice. France mirrored it. The Netherlands refined the concept into a sophisticated financial network. The newly formed United States embraced government debt to fund its revolution, expand westward, and forge a nation from that point onward. Debt was no longer seen as a symbol of failure. It became a measure of credibility. The capacity to borrow signaled legitimacy, strength, and power. Empires once conquered land to seize gold. Now they issued bonds to harvest interest. The battlefield shifted from the front lines to the balance sheet. Centuries later, debt has become the world's most ubiquitous export. The US owes trillions. Japan owes trillions. Global borrowing rises by the equivalent of $1 trillion every few months. Every government borrows. Every bank lends. Every citizen, through taxes, savings, mortgages, and pensions, is both a debtor and a creditor at the same time. So who holds the other end of the rope? Let us start with the United States, because its debt is not merely national, it is global in influence. Of the more than $38 trillion owed, roughly half is held by investors rather than government institutions. 2/3 of those investors are domestic American pension funds, mutual funds, banks, insurance companies, and of course, the Federal Reserve itself. The remaining 1/3 sits in foreign vaults. Japan owns about $1 trillion worth. China holds around $800 billion. Others reside in the United Kingdom, Luxembourg, Belgium, and financial hubs scattered across the world. So when people say, America is in debt to China, the statement is not wrong, but it represents only a small fraction of the total. Most of America's debt is owed internally, circulating inside its own financial ecosystem. The Treasury issues bonds. Investors buy them. The Federal Reserve often purchases those same bonds, creating new dollars in the process. Citizens pay taxes. Those taxes fund interest payments, and those payments eventually flow back into retirement accounts, financial institutions, and investment funds. It is a circular system, a hall of mirrors made of obligations and trust. And this pattern extends far beyond one country. Japan purchases U.S. bonds, the U.S. funds European institutions, Europe finances development through global banks. Emerging economies lend back to wealthier nations by storing their reserves in Western assets. A continuous loop, a worldwide exchange of IOUs passes from one set of hands to another. It is like a card game in which every player is borrowing chips from the next, all invested in keeping the game alive. No one can afford to walk away from the table. Yet behind governments and institutions lies another, even more powerful force, the global markets themselves. Hedge funds, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, insurance giants, central banks. These entities manage vast pools of capital. They determine how affordable borrowing becomes. They decide which nations thrive and which struggle to survive. When confidence fades, currencies collapse. Governments fall. Entire societies can be reshaped virtually overnight. Elections determine who governs, but markets often determine who endures. And presiding over this world is the modern central bank. These institutions do more than manage debt. In many ways, they create it. Each time a central bank purchases government bonds, it exchanges newly created money for a promise. An obligation on one balance sheet becomes an asset on another. Every dollar, euro, or yen in circulation is tied somewhere to a corresponding liability. In this system, debt-free money does not exist. For decades, the mechanism has functioned on one fundamental ingredient: confidence. As long as investors believe interest payments will continue, even if the principal is never fully retired, the system persists. But history has revealed what happens when confidence fractures in Greece during 2010. Public finances unraveled. Investors panicked. Borrowing costs soared. Emergency rescue programs arrived, but they came attached to austerity. Taxes rose. Social programs were cut. Jobs vanished. For many families, an entire decade became defined by sacrifice. In Argentina, repeated defaults transformed debt into a recurring national trauma. In Sri Lanka, fuel shortages and political turmoil erupted when the government could no longer service its external loans. In those moments, hidden creditors suddenly became unmistakably visible rating agencies, global institutions, and anonymous bondholders with the power to dictate the terms of survival. Yet, even after collapse, the cycle restarts. Old debt is reorganized. New loans replace the previous ones. The system resets. The names may change, but the structure remains. Because in the modern era, sovereign debt is not designed to vanish. It is designed to roll forward. Governments refinance the past with the future, renewing their obligations instead of erasing them. Individuals repay loans. States extend them. Interest becomes the product. It's the ongoing fee for stability. The global economy, from pensions and mortgages to trade and investment, depends on that ongoing motion. Like a shark that must keep swimming to survive, the financial system must continue expanding its promises. Consider the United States again. Realistically, it will never pay down its $38 trillion balance in full. Japan, with debt surpassing 250% of GDP, has refinanced for decades while maintaining borrowing costs near zero. Investors are not waiting to be repaid. They are waiting for the opportunity to renew the agreement. Why? Because government bonds have become the bedrock collateral of the world economy. They are not perceived as liabilities. They are treated as wealth. Banks secure their operations with them. Pension funds depend on them. Central banks treat them almost as money itself. Paradoxically, if a country like the United States decided to erase all of its debt tomorrow, the result would not be stability, it would be chaos. Financial institutions would lose their safest asset. The supply of dollars would contract dramatically. Markets could spiral. In trying to eliminate debt, the system would remove its very foundation. So instead, governments issue more, not recklessly, but rhythmically maintaining the pulse of financial life. That is why political promises about paying off the national debt often belong more to rhetoric than reality. The objective is not elimination. It is sustainability, keeping borrowing credible, serviceable, trusted enough that the engine never loses momentum. Because once belief evaporates, the numbers are irrelevant. Interest rates surge. Liquidity disappears. The machinery halts. But there is another side to this story, one that cuts through societies themselves. When economists say we owe it to ourselves, the phrase conceals a deeper truth. The flow of debt does not move evenly. Interest payments travel upward from workers and taxpayers to the institutions and investors who hold financial claims. Debt does not simply transfer resources between countries. It transfers wealth across classes. That is why inequality rises alongside indebtedness. Those who own debt thrive on its returns. Those who merely pay into the system carry its weight. Creditors are not villains. Debtors are not victims. They are interdependent roles within the same engine. The real danger emerges when that engine runs beyond its limits, when expectations built into old promises exceed the capacity of tomorrow's borrowing to sustain them. At that moment, the question, who is the creditor, stops being abstract. It becomes intensely human, because at the top of this pyramid, there's no single figure pulling the strings. It is not China alone, not Wall Street alone, not the IMF alone. It is all of them, and us. Governments issue debt. Banks multiply it. Investors trade it. Citizens depend on it. The line between borrower and lender dissolves into a shared system of faith. Debt once meant chains. Today, it means balance, a delicate equilibrium held together by trust. But if that trust shatters, the illusion vanishes, and we are reminded of what debt has always truly been, a promise. A promise that cannot stretch forever. If this story reshaped the way you see money, economics, and power, stay with us. History does not just record the past, it reveals the hidden machinery of the present. And if you know where to look, the answers are already waiting.